हरिः ओम्। शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सिन्दूरारुणविग्रहां त्रिनयनां माणिक्यमौलिस्फुरत्तारानायकशेखरां स्मितमुखीमापीनवक्षोरुहां पाणिभ्यां मलिपूर्णरत्नचषकं रक्तोत्पलं बिभ्रतीं सौम्यां रत्नघटस्थरक्तचरणां ध्यायेत् परामम्बिकाम्। ॐ ध्यायेन्नित्यं महेशं रजतगिरिनिभं चारुचन्द्रावतंसं रत्नाकल्पोज्ज्वलाङ्गं परशुमृगवरभीतिहस्तं प्रसन्नं पद्मासीनं समन्तात् स्तुतममरगणैः व्याघ्रकृत्तिं वसानं विश्वाद्यं विश्वबीजं निखिलभयहरं पञ्चवक्त्रं त्रिनेत्रम्। ॐ नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर्गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम्। ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्ससुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्।
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय। श्रीभगवानुवाच क्लैब्यं मास्मगमः पार्थ नैतत्त्वय्युपपद्यते क्षुद्रं हृदय दौर्बल्यं त्यक्त्वोत्तिष्ठ परन्तप। अर्जुन उवाच मदनुग्रहाय परमं गुह्यमध्यात्मसंज्ञितं यत्त्वयोक्तं वचस्तेन मोहोऽयं विगतो मम। मन्यसे यदि तच्छक्यं मया द्रष्टुमिति प्रभो योगेश्वर ततो मे त्वं दर्शयामानमव्ययम्। श्रीभगवानुवाच न तु मां शक्यसे द्रष्टुम् अनेनैव स्वचक्षुषा दिव्यं ददामि ते चक्षुः पश्य मे योगमैश्वरम्। सञ्जय उवाच एवमुक्त्वा ततो राजन् महायोगेश्वरो हरिः दर्शयामास पार्थाय परमं रूपमैश्वरम्। दिवि सूर्यसहस्रस्य भवेद्युगपदुत्थिता यदि भासदृशी सा स्यात् भासस्तस्य महात्मनः। ततः स विस्मयाविष्टो हृष्टरोमा धनञ्जयः प्रणम्य शिरसा देवं कृताञ्जलिरभाषत। अर्जुन उवाच त्वमक्षरं परमं वेदितव्यं त्वमस्य विश्वस्य परं निधानं त्वमव्ययः शाश्वतधर्मगोप्ता सनातनस्त्वं पुरुषो मतो मे अनादिमध्यान्तमनन्तवीर्यम् अनन्तबाहुं शशिसूर्यनेत्रं पश्यामि त्वां दीप्तहुताशवक्त्रं स्वतेजसा विश्वमिदं तपन्तम् द्यावा पृथिव्योरिदमन्तरं हि व्याप्तं त्वयैकेन दिशश्च सर्वाः दृष्ट्वाद्भुतं रूपमुग्रं तवेदं लोकत्रयं प्रव्यथितं महात्मन्
Okay, very nice. Let me see how this one.
You finished 57, Professor.
57. Okay. Mentally surrendering all works. One. We have finished.
Yes, Professor.
Yes. Okay, 57. So the last two are see here. So up till 54, this disciplined knower attains the highest devotion to me, the Supreme Lord, devotion marked by knowledge, of the fourth kind of devotees, say C716. So this must be the Chaturvidha, following from that. So the Jnani, 16. Yeah, 716 is Chaturvidha. Bhajante mam janaha sukrituno Arjuna. Artho jigyasur artharthi jnani cha bhartashabha, the knower. So he is the one who knows the truth. So he says here, of the fourth kind of devotees, this disciplined knower. So up till 54, becoming Brahman, and how is this? Cultivating solitude, eating lightly, ever intent on the yoga of meditation, dhyana yoga paraha, etc. And all this was leading in from sort of the characteristics of attaining the highest, attaining the supreme. But before that, Bhagavan has been talking about works and the division of persons according to their gunas, etc. And so in 55, he says, he comprehends me, what my extent is, who I am. Thus, knowing me in truth, he enters into me by this approach. Then the next question then arises, the gaining of perfection of the fitness for the discipline of knowledge is the fruit of the yoga of devotion, consisting in divine worship in the form of the performance of one's allotted works. So even in Tripura Rahasya, the notion of Kritopasaka arises. So somebody like Bhagavan Sri Ramana is referred to as a Krita Upasaka, the one who has already performed the acts of devotion in past lives, and therefore ready immediately in that birth to take on the yoga of Dhyana Yoga. And this fitness leads to the discipline of knowledge and culminates in liberation. ज्ञान निष्ठा योग्यता यन्निमित्ता ज्ञान निष्ठा मोक्ष फल फलावसाना. Now, this yoga of devotion to the Lord, consisting in the performance of one's allotted work as worship to him, is extolled in this concluding portion of the Gita, the aim being the strengthening of the conviction regarding its doctrines. Saha Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga Adhuna Stuyate Shastrartha Upasamhara Prakarini Shastrartha Nischaya Nischayadadhar Dhaya Nischayadhar Dhaya. So the basic point is this. We may look at the great gurus and ask, undoubtedly, they have attained the highest perfection, right? How should one of the aspirant proceed? Suppose everybody were to give up all works and sit in meditation in caves, then what would happen? The entire creation, society as we know it, would fall apart, right? So, even this great poet Alfred Tennyson wrote, "And God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt this world." So spiritual attainment also in the Tripura Rahasya, Jnana Yoga, the state of the Jnanis, is also described as variously. Some Jnanis are silent. Some are roaming the earth. Some, like Vedavyasa, are separating the Vedas. Some, like Durvasa, are engaging in penances, but also, they may engage in instruction of various kinds. The Jnani of the Jnanis, the Jnana of the Jnanis is not different. They all have Brahma Vidya. So by their actions alone, one cannot judge, right? So the trick that each human being has to discover is, in what form does my spiritual attainment, liberation, wisdom transform that particular human's life? In what way can one attain perfection in one's allotted status of life, station of life? Not suddenly changing the station upside down, but in that very station, right? A janitor can attain the highest in his station of life. A custodian can attain the highest in his station of life. A person who's bagging your groceries can attain the highest in his or her station of life. Nobody has said that they are not, that they cannot, or that they have not. We don't know. Right? Sometimes the behavior of ordinary people can surprise one beyond measure. Even for an instant, if they are in touch with the Supreme, they can behave in extraordinary ways, right? So Bhagavan is saying here, nevertheless, how to give instruction for the general public, which will be a timeless instruction. So there he started 56. Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvano mad vyayapashrayah mat prasadat avapnoti shashvatam padamavyam. Though performing all works continuously in total dependence on me, due to my grace, one achieves the eternal and immutable status. And this should be connected back to, remember, in, I think, chapter 6, it also came. Arurukshor Muner Yogam, right? Karma Karanam Uchyate. Yoga Rudhasya Tasyaiva Shama Karanam Uchyate. Aruruksha is one who is desirous of climbing the mountain of yoga. For that one, karma is prescribed as the means. Yoga Rudaha is one who is permanently established in yoga. For him, quiescence, shama, non-performance is prescribed as the means. So then the question arises, who is a yoga Ruda? And that litmus test each person must apply only to themselves. And for that, Bhagavan gave the verse, Yadahina indriyartheshu karmasu anushajjati, right? When even for the objects of the senses or for any karmas, there is no desire arising, right? Sarva sankalpa sannyasi yoga rudas taduchyate. The one who even gives up all mental beginnings, right? In whom the thought of a resolution to do something even does not arise, right? Sarva sankalpa. So every time we are doing, when we do Sandhya Vandanam, we do sankalpa, right? So for doing all holy Vedic works, we do sankalpa. But we also do sankalpa for other things. Okay, I will have lunch today. Tomorrow I will go meet my friend. I will go for a walk in the park. These are also sankalpas, right? Of a different kind. But the yoga Rudha is one who has given up all sankalpas. So by applying the litmus test to oneself, one can decide, should I be following the path of quiescence or should I be following the path of karma or action, right? So the rest of the verses here pertain to one who has, after applying litmus test to themselves, or like COVID rapid antigen test at home, blue line or blue and red line, okay? So depending on what the result is, one has to choose the path, right? So now comes the path. Sarva karmanyapi sada kurvanaha, though performing all works continuously, in total dependence on me, due to my grace, one achieves the eternal and immutable status. Then next one we already read, 57. Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparaha buddhi yogam upashritya matchittaha satatam bhava. Mentally surrendering all works to me, setting me above all and resorting to concentrated understanding, buddhi yogam upashritya, fix your mind unceasingly on me. So, even if one is not able to achieve this ultimate level, at the end of the day, or occasionally we say kayena vacha manasendriyarva, right? We remind ourselves that whatever we have done through the body or through the mind or through the indriyas, sense organs, through our buddhi, right? Through the limited sense of the I sense in the jiva, buddhyatmanava, prakritehe swabhava, through the natural flowing of the prakriti, the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas. Karomi, whatever I do, I give to Narayana. What is the meaning of that? The meaning of that is that the judgment of our actions will bear an inevitable fruit, right? And whatever fruit we get, we must be happy with that, right? So if we cultivate rajas and we cultivate tamas and we act out of rajas and tamas, the fruit of that will not be very beneficial. We already know that what will be the fruit of a rajasic action? It will be like nectar at first and poison afterwards, right? Fruit of a tamasic action will give nobody any good. It is error compounding error, right? Fruit of the sattvic action will be like poison at first and nectar afterwards. So impelled by our past karmas and based on the guna balance that we have cultivated, we are bound to perform these actions, right? And the action will definitely have its fruit. That cannot be avoided, correct? But by placing this at the feet of the Lord, an equanimity of mind arises, that even the same fruit, when two different people experience it, they experience it differently. Right? It is not that Shivananda's mother did not die. But he did not beat himself on the breast and cry from a valley of tears and fall at the feet and say, oh, please save me, whatnot, etc., etc. And he was not suppressing his emotion either. This is very important. It is not a suppression of emotion. He fully knew his emotions, right? Emotions are there. They are part of being human being. We have to acknowledge them. We cannot run away from them. They will be there, right? But through repeated and long practice of yoga and seeing the emotions arise, recognizing that they are only transient. This is a very difficult practice, right? Not an easy practice. Not denying the emotion. The emotion will always be there. But recognizing the transience, right? And therefore being able to lovingly do the works that he needed to do from there on without getting overly disturbed by it, right? That is the way that it affected him, or we see that it's affecting him, right? So it is in that sense that this verse, I believe, in my humble opinion, that's what it means. So let us read on. Number 58.
मच्चित्तः सर्वदुर्गाणि मत्प्रसादात् तरिष्यसि अथ चेत्त्वमहङ्कारं न श्रोष्यसि विनङ्क्षसि.
Beautiful. Very nicely read. Thank you. Yat chittaha sarva durgani. Machchitta, that your mind fixed on me. Sarva durgani, all difficulties, all obstacles. So you see, interestingly here, Bhagavan, he does not promise there will be no obstacles. He didn't say there will be no obstacles. Yes or no? Very important point. He did not say that if you pray to me, there will be no obstacles. And it completely aligns with the interpretation I gave you preceding, right? Mattaha sarva durgani. Mat prasadat tarishyasi. How will you overcome? By my grace. And remember that prasadam, I told you, is the equanimity of mind that we get. When you go to the temple, of course, when you go as a child, you are only interested in the sweet prasadam. The sweet prasadam is a reflection of the peace of mind. Because the sweet prasadam is a vishayanandam. It is the ananda coming from the vishaya. It is the bliss or joy. It's actually a pleasure, not a bliss or joy in English language. It's a pleasure coming from the senses. Now, what is the root of that pleasure? We know from the Anandavalli that if that pleasure was multiplied like a peta bliss, right, that is Brahmananda. It is only a mere reflection of that. So when we attain the prasadam of the true form, which is the equanimity of the mind, right, then it enables to overcome these obstacles, is what Bhagavan is saying. You see, if you really think about it, even the taste of the sweet prasadam cannot be enjoyed unless the mind is calm, right? Let us take a 5-year-old and a 50-year-old go to the temple. The pujari gives a sweet prasadam. 5-year-old enjoys it always, right? If the 50-year-old is beset with troubles in the mind, oh my God, what is going to happen? Will I have enough money tomorrow? So-and-so is ill. Can they enjoy the prasadam? They actually cannot. You cannot enjoy the sweetness if the mind is not calm. And that also Bhagavan has given us in an earlier verse, if you remember. In that it comes, Ashantasya kutas sukham. For the one whose mind is not peaceful, where will pleasure arise? Right? Nasti buddhir ayuktasya, it starts. Nacha ayuktasya bhavana, abhavata kutas shanti, ashantasya kutas sukham. In other words, without yoking of the senses, there will be no cultivation of sattvic buddhi, right? And such a person will also not have a devotional bhavana. Without the devotional bhavana, where will peace of mind arise? Without peace of mind, how can you have happiness? So again, here Bhagavan is saying it is through fixing our mind on him that he allows us to overcome obstacles due to my grace. This is the mind that is not swayed by difficulties. Again, you know the Kabir Doha that goes, दुख में सुमिरन सब करे, सुख में करे न कोई, जो सुख में सुमिरन करे, दुख काहे को होई. Buddha also pointed this out by saying that there are two arrows. The first arrow is the arrow that causes the pain. The second arrow is the memory of the pain, which causes further suffering. Right? Suppose somebody tells you something harsh, right? If we were truly transparent, that word will come, it will hit the ego, right? It will cause a pain maybe. But then if you're truly transparent, it will actually spin back like a boomerang without you saying anything. But if the ego is very strong, the mind won't let go of the memory of that word, right? It will replay the tape. So-and-so said this, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said this. That is the second arrow that Buddha is talking about, right? So all of the Kabir, Buddha, the Bhagavad Gita are all pointing to the same thing in this context, which Bhagavan is saying in verse 58. But if egoistically you pay no heed, you will perish. Ata chetvam ahankarat na shroshyasi. If you do not listen to me, do not pay any heed. Why? Out of what? Out of the ego. I do that ahankara. You will perish, is what Bhagavan says. And perish in the sense, you can see the first situation is mental illness, right? The mind is not calm. It's difficult to accomplish anything, right? Nowadays, mental illness is all in the news. And it's a very sad situation. If you look around you, there are a vast number of people who are not mentally well, right? In an extreme case, it manifests as children going into school and taking guns and shooting people. But even on a minor scale, on the range that we look from there, there's a lot of mental illness. Even in our own life, if we don't cultivate mental health, we cannot even keep the body in a good shape, right? First, to keep the body in a good shape, the mind has to be firm. At least we should sleep at the right time, exercise at the right time, take diet correctly at the right time, and spend some time in meditation or some reflection, right? If those four pillars are in place, then one can expect good health everywhere, right? Both in mind and body. So what Bhagavan is saying is, if you do not do this, then the obstacles will overwhelm you. And that, in that sense, he means you will perish. After all, if your mind perishes, eventually the body will also perish with no control, right? And even earlier in the Gita, Bhagavan said at one point that the one who doesn't have Shraddha, faith, will not enjoy either in this world or the next world, right? And he will perish, right? So this faith is highly lauded. So if, however, egotistically thinking, I am wise, you pay no heed to what is being said, do not accept and act on it, you will perish or come to ruin. Okay, number 59.
यद्य अहंकारमाश्रित्य न योत्स्य इति मन्यसे मिथ्यैष व्यावसायस्ते प्रकृतिस्त्वां नियोत्स्यति.
Yes. Yadi ahankaram ashritya. Yadi, in case, if resting on your ego, na yotsya iti, I will not fight, you maintain, mithya eva vyavasayah te. This is a erroneous decision. Prakritihi tvam niyokshyati. Your nature will constrain you. Resorting to egoism, if you think I will not fight, if you resolve thus, this resolve of yours is erroneous. Your nature as a Kshatriya will constrain you to fight. The very balance of your gunas will impel you in that direction. If a very honest man steals once, right, that conscience will prick him, right, constantly. So understanding one's swabhavam, one has to then understand what is the dharma and the associated karmas that have to be discharged. 60, please.
स्वभावेन कौन्तेय निबुद्धस्वेन कर्मणा कर्तुं निश्चसि यन्मोहात् करिष्यस्य वशोऽपि तत्.
Yes, this is a very, very powerful verse. Swabhavajena kaunteya nibaddaha svena karmana kartum nechasi yanmohat karishyasi avasho api tat. So, swabhavaja, that is that which is born of swabhava. The suffix ja, swabhavam is nature, swabhavaja is born of nature. Swabhavajena, instrumental case of born of nature. As a consequence of that which is born of nature, Kaunteya, you are bound, nibaddhaha, svena, by your own work. Kartum na ichasi, even if you do not desire to do it because of this delusion, karishyasi, you will do it, avashaha, inevitably. Right? So, in other words, Bhagavan is saying we cannot run away from those things. Swayed by heroism, born of your nature, and bound by your work, which due to delusion or non-discrimination you don't desire to do, you will do that unavoidably. For 61.
ईश्वर सर्वभूतानां हृदये अर्जुन तिष्ठति ब्रह्मयन् सर्वभूतानि यन्त्रारूढानि मायया.
Right. Ishvaraha sarvabhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. Ishvaraha, the Lord, the one who has supreme lordship, sarvabhutanam, of all beings, hriddeshaha, heart place, in the heart place, Arjuna, oh Arjuna, tishtati, he is residing. Hriddesho tishtati. Brahmayan. Sarvabhutani. Yantra. Yantra is a machine. Yantrarudhani. As though they are mounted on a machine, he is revolving them. Brahmayati. Brahmayan, or revolving. How? Instrumentally, through Maya. If you've gone to those merry-go-rounds, you know, children like to go to those merry-go-rounds when they are young. They are very fun. You have like some horse, elephant, different kinds of animals, and you sit on that and it goes round and round. And it's enjoyable for a kid, right? It can get quite dizzy after a while. But, and some of them, they go up and down also, right? As they go around the circle, they go up and down. So what Bhagavan is saying, this is exactly what's happening to you. Imagine that. Imagine that. Imagine that all our life, we've been imagining that I did this, I did that. And imagine if all you were sitting on one of those silly horses and being wheeled around. Think about it. how humbling it is. All the mental agonizing of I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I should decide this, should this be done, that be done, all this mental indigestion, right? In the end, is one fellow revolving the whole thing around and around. Right? This concept is very beautiful, right? But hard. It's hard to accept, very hard to accept, right? That indeed, this is what is happening. But when we analyze, when you apply Dhyan Yoga, you see, and if you have Shraddha in the scriptures and in the words of the Guru, very logically, this is what is happening. Because although we see a multiplicity through the senses, do you understand what I mean by multiplicity? I am seeing here a computer, a book, 2, 3. I'm seeing images on the screen, some pixels moving. I am seeing a chair and a light. It's multiplicity, it's not one, right? All this multiplicity can eventually be reduced down to 5, because it's only 5 senses that give me this information. Primarily right now, it is a sense of sight, but there can be sense of smell. There is a nice agarbatti lit behind me. There is a sense of touch sitting on the floor. Right now, there is no sense of taste operational, but it will be once dinner is served. And then there is hearing. So all this multiplicity, let us say it is even infinite. Let us say in a lifetime, you see so many things that it is kind of tending to infinity. N is very large, if N is the number of things. But all these N things can be boiled down to 5 vectors. 5 vectors can describe all these N objects. Right? So we reduce infinity to 5. These 5 sets of vectors, their experiences themselves are composed only of 3. If there was no Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, the very act of perception through every sense will not happen. And this you can know for yourself if you sit deeply in meditation and meditate on the senses themselves. Progressively in meditation, as you break through the senses and you break through the gunas, this will become very clear. So 5 becomes 3. Right? Now, what are the 3? The 3 are themselves aspects of Shakti only. So someone who meditates on Shakti will see that this power, Maya, is nothing but one only. The 3 are merely different forms of that one. Right? So then it is not unreasonable to understand how this machine works. That is the instrumental case of Maya. Right? Maya's power is the ability to make one appear as many. If we look at white light, you pass it through a prism, what happens?
It will split.
Into colors, right?
Yeah.
But there's only one white light. Right? So the prism is the Maya. Right? Then, so Bhagavan says here, they resemble wooden puppets set on machines caused to revolve through Maya or illusion. Thus, it has to be construed. The phrase as though must be understood. So, next one, please, 62.
Tamev saranam gaccha sarvabhavena bharata tat prasadatparam santim sthanam prapsyasi sasvatam.
Very beautiful, yes. Tam eva, that one only, verily, sharanam gaccha, to his refuge, please go. Sarva bhavena, with all your devotion and heart, Bharata. Tat prasadat, due to his grace, param shantim, ultimate peace, supreme peace, sthanam, status, Prapsyasi Shaswatam. Shaswatam Sthanam, the eternal status you will attain, you will win. Seek refuge with all your heart and all your soul in your entirety. Rest in him alone to save yourself from the sufferings of transmigratory life. O Arjuna, then due to his grace, divine blessings, you will win supreme peace or withdrawal and the eternal status of Vishnu, Vishnu or Paramam Padam. 63 then, please.
इति ते ज्ञानमाख्यातं गुह्यातरं मया विमृश्यैतदशेषेण यथेच्छसि तथा कुरु.
This is such a brilliant verse. This is such a brilliant verse. And this tells you the very great power of Hinduism. Okay. Iti te jnanamakyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrishya etad asheshena yathechasi tathat kuru. Bhagavan says, iti te, in this way, has been declared to you. Jnanamakyatam, knowledge. Akyatam has been declared. Guhyat guhyataram. Guhya is secret. The secretest of the secret. Guhyat guhyataram. Mama, maya, by me, has been told to you. Vimrishya, in full account. Etad, taking full account of it. Asheshena, without taking any parts, in entirety. Asheshena is full. Yatha ichchasi tatha kuru, do as you deem fit. Now, which other God will give you this choice? Only Sri Krishna. And this is the power of Hinduism. He doesn't say, you must do. Although he is the Lord. How much more benevolence? And that is why it is a non-proselytizing religion. If God himself has not told us, he gave the choice, and how can you go around telling other people with a big stick, whacking them on the head and saying, you do as I say? God himself has told the ultimate secret and said, you do as you do. If you're an idiot, go to your hell. Who is going to stop you? Why should even Lord stop you? No. Hinduism is in its true sense, is the path of the intelligent, of the highly intelligent, right? But it cannot be brought about by enforcing on the unwilling, right? Even Arjuna, who himself is so great, a great tapasvi, he even got Pashupati Astra from Indra, from Shiva, and won various other things from Indra. He himself has been told, you do as you wish, right? What then to say of less accomplished people, right? Right. So that is the main, that is why I think, to me, this is the most beautiful. So again, 64, listen again to what is going to be said. Bhuyo api maya uchyamanam shrunu. 64, please.
Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shrunu me paramam vachah ishtosi me dhrudam iti tato vakshyami te hitam.
You see, this is like a benevolent father. If the son is errant, go. If your child doesn't want to listen to what you say, leave it be. Let the child go. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah. Again, listen. Shrunu me paramam vacha. My paramam vacha is my supreme word. Bhuyah shrunu me paramam vacha. Again, listen to my supreme word. The most exalted mystery, the most guhya. So far we have heard guhyat, guhyataram. Guhyatara is comparative. Good, better, best. Secret, guhya. Guhyatara, secreter. Guhyatama, secretest. Superlative. So far he said, of all the secrets, the secreter secret I have told you. Now he's saying the secretest of everything. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shrunu me paramam vacha. Ishto asi me dridham iti. for indeed you are dear to me. Ishtaha. Right? So this knowledge is imparted with great love, with great compassion, because Lord is ever merciful and the Lord loves all of his creation. Tataha vakshyami te hitam. This word of his is very firm. Dridham. And because ishto asi me tataha vakshyami te hitam, because you are dear to me, I am saying what is good for you. Right? Now, do we go out on the street and pull every fellow and tell him what you think is good for him? No. You take that which is dear to you. Your child or your student or your good friend, that person you say, I have selected the best thing for you. Listen to my supreme word, the most exalted mystery, the greatest secret. Though often it has been declared, not out of fear or due to desire to gain some end do I speak, but because you are consistently dear to me indeed. This is very important. In Hinduism, the great sages, the first requirement of the guru is there should be no desire. There should be no hidden agenda in the transmission of the truth. The agenda should not be to gain something from the student. If that hidden agenda is there, then the power of that will be diminished, right? Bhagavan is the ultimate desire. It is very difficult for many people to understand this. When we read the writings of the great gurus, it's amazing that the reason we say there is no lie in them is because they are desireless. Why would they say anything untrue? They have nothing to gain from you. Every other person has some agenda in teaching you something. Either they are getting money from you, or they are trying to move you in some direction which is beneficial to them. But it's only the Lord and his manifestation of the great gurus who are completely desireless, whose instruction is always only for your good. And that is why it is so important to follow it. Even your very parents will have some agenda when they advise you. This is a fact. Anyone else who advises you will have some vested interest in your doing their bidding. But the guru, in the sense of this true sense of guru, as described in the Mandukya Upanishad, etc., Brahmanishtha, without desire, and therefore also reading the words of the Lord, that will be truly for the highest good, because there is no desire. He already said in 63, do as you deem fit. Right? So this is very, very important. Therefore, all those kind of bad things you hear about the Gita are written by fools and idiots. I'm very sorry to say this, but it has to be said bluntly. Anyone who decries the Gita is a fool and an idiot because he's not understood. He or she has not understood these verses. And that person cannot comprehend what it means to be desireless. Because they are so attached, their own minds are so agenda driven that they cannot understand the nature of a mind that is not driven by agenda, that is not driven by desire, that is not driven by selfish needs. So those people will cast negative things against the Gita. But if you read these verses and you attain through your own meditation and dispassion, even get a glimpse of the state, you will realize that this is a very, very, very high state of being. And it transcends all the other states that I have seen in other religions. This is a fact. That is why it is non-proselytizing, non-converting religion. That's why it's the highest religion to follow. Next one. Kim tat iti. Aha. What is that, says the Lord? 65.
मन्मना भव मद्भक्तो मद्याजी मां नमस्कुरु मामे वैश्यसि सत्यं ते प्रतिजाने प्रियोऽसि मे.
Beautiful verse. This is again a very beautiful verse. Manmana bhava mad bhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mameva eshyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Manmana bhava, set your mind on me. Mad bhaktaha, be my devotee. Madhyaji, sacrifice unto me. Mam namaskuru, prostrate before me. Mameva eshyasi, you will surely attain me. Satyam te, truly I do promise you. Pratijane, priyosi, for you are dear to me. Now note that the order of the verses. 65 comes after 63. Choice has first been given. The Lord did not say, I am the way first and then give the choice later. Right? This is truly the word of the Lord. That's why. That is why the Bhagavad Gita is truly the word of the Lord. Right? Only one who has supreme lordship can talk like this, can say with such complete non-attachment. Huh? Do as you wish. But I can also promise you that if you do this, the fruits will occur to you. They will accrue to you. Therefore, prostrate before me, pay obeisance unto me. Thus doing, seeing goals, means and profit in Vasudeva exclusively, you will attain me, come to me. I promise you this truly in regard to this matter of spiritual concern, for you are dear to me. The idea is that knowing the Lord's promise to be certainly true and the fruit of liberation sure to follow, one should dedicate oneself exclusively to the Lord. Karma yoga nishthayaha parama rahasyam Ishvara sharanatam upasamhritya ata idanim karma yoga nishtha phalam samyak darshanam sarva vedanta saram vihitam bhaktavyam iti aha. Having thus concluded the supreme secret of the discipline of Karma Yoga, namely self-dedication to the Lord, he declares now the fruit of the discipline of Karma Yoga, or right perception, Samyak Darshanam, which forms the quintessence of all Upanishads. Sarva Vedanta Sara Vihitam Bhaktavyam iti aha. 66, please.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः.
Beautiful. This is again a very beautiful verse. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma shucha. Sarva dharman parityajya, giving up all acts of righteousness. Seek refuge in me alone. Aham tva sarva papebhyo, I will liberate you, mokshayishyami, of all your sins. Ma shuchaha, do not grieve. Again, who can offer this sovereign promise? None but the Supreme Lord. Right? So here the idea is, although earlier the karmas have been extolled and Vaidika karma is a surefire path to heaven. Bhur bhuva suva. Along the way, suppose one is not, which is natural, not able to perform all those karmas to perfection. Right? There is, let us say, some defect. Is there not in all of us some defect of karma? No one's karma is perfect. Right? Even if we take Nitya Naimittika karmas, there is some falling off. Right? But Bhagavan gives this promise that if you seek refuge in me, Mamekam Sharanam Vraja, if that one-pointed surrender is there in the Lord, he will liberate of all those sins. Right? So, all dharma or acts of righteousness. Dharma here includes adharma also, according to Bhagavan Shankaracharya. Sarva dharman, sarvecha te dharmascha sarva dharmaha tan. Dharma shabdena atra adharmaha api grhyate. Naishkarmyasya vivakshitatvat. Navirato duscharitat. Kathopanishad. What is conveyed here is the idea of freedom from all works. Dharma here means karma. From pronouncement in Shruti and Smriti like the following, it is clear that the sense is the renunciation. Without withdrawing from evil conduct, give up righteousness and unrighteousness. In me alone, in the self of all, the same dwelling in all, God, unlapsing, seek refuge with the idea there is nothing but I. Mamekam sarvatmanam samam sarvabhuta sthitam ishwaram achyutam garbha janma jara marana vivarjitam. So giving up both first unrighteous works and then righteous works also. Right? The first discipline is we give up the unrighteous and favor the righteous. And finally, even the righteous has to be given up. Otherwise, the transcendence of heaven itself, Swargalok, will not happen. The order is important. Right? That should not be and this only we can know if we examine ourselves in our mind. It is not an excuse or out of jail free card for not doing the righteous works. Right? But it is a final transcendence of both papam and punyam, which again in the Yoga Sutra, if you recall, it comes that Krishna and Akrishna, black and white, are the works of others, but the works of the yogis or Trividham or Mishra, mixed, are the works of everyone. But the works of the yogis are not falling in those three categories. They are neither dharmic or adharmic or a mixture of both. So anyway, we have completed now up till, it's a long discussion on this. Maybe this is a good place to stop. We are a little over time. So how about we stop at 66 and well, let us finish 67 because this is an important verse also, and it's logically probably better to finish it here. Then next time we'll pick up again from 67. 67, please.
Idam te nata paskaya na bhaktaya kadachana no chasu shru save bhatyam no chamam yo vyasuyati.
Right. Idam te na atapaskaya na abhaktaya kadachana na cha asushrusave vachyam na cha mam yo abhyasuyati. In fact, if you remember, we started this Gita class. When did we start it, Rakesh? And where did we start it? This Vivekananda House.
Yes, September 2019. Yeah.
At that time, actually, I cited this verse when we were starting, if you remember. Because this verse, although it comes in the 18th chapter, is important to know right at the beginning. Who is qualified? And it is open to everybody in the sense of
Adhikara, you mentioned.
Right.
Yes.
It is open to men and women and Shudras, and everyone can listen to the Bhagavad Gita. But there is a condition, and that condition is expressed here. Don't impart this to a non-ascetic, one who does not have control of the senses. atapaha. Na abhaktaya, to one who doesn't have devotion. Kadachana, ever. Nacha ashushrushrave, to one who doesn't want it. Vachyam, it should not be said. This should not be transmitted. Nacha mam yo abhyasyati, or the one who seeks to revile me. So you see, in the old days, the reason for the secrecy of imparting this knowledge was that if it is listened to by any of these people, they will give some wrong interpretation and they will try to discredit it. They will try to put it down and they will demean it and they will revile it. So therefore, the precondition for studying it was that one should have control of the senses. One should have bhakti, devotion in the Lord. One should want to listen to it. And one should not revile the Lord. Right? It's very simple. If you go to study physics and you say, I don't trust Newton, I don't believe in the laws of motion, I don't believe in it, probably shouldn't be in the physics class, right? Just because your parents paid the money and twisted your ear and sent you there, you showed up, right? So Bhagavan is saying guard against that, particularly in this kind of a realm, which is a deeply spiritual realm, and where we don't want to see unnecessary idiots with a megaphone saying something negative about something that is the highest truth, right? So it was meant to be a kavacham of a sort, a protection around the work and the listener. Okay, so I just thought it's nice to say that here at the conclusion of all the beautiful secrets, etc. After, when we come back, we will take from 68 onwards. Any questions so far on what we covered today?
I have a quick question about this. The without the control of senses.
Mhm.
So does that mean control pratyahar, like the somebody who is in the with going towards that path, pratyahar, or loosely what does this mean? Does this mean like okay, so this very devoted, right? And then believes in Gita and believes in Bhagwan's word and then all.
Mhm.
How to take it?
Yes, how to take it is, at the time of reading the Bhagavad Gita, we are preparing ourselves in some way, right? We are trying to focus on it, correct? So what it doesn't mean pratyahar in the truly yogic sense of mastery of pratyahar, but it means that in a general sense, is this person on the path, or are they given to a lot of sense indulgence? That's what it means. In a much more day-to-day sense.
General, okay,
Yeah.
general, not very specific, like you say. Okay.
It is not in the yogic sense. It is in the sense of generally is that person committed to restraint of the senses for study of the Gita. Any other questions?
And the person who is like highly indulging in the senses, maybe the person who does not want to seek it, maybe
That's
they
right.
fall into the same category.
Because it will seem all contrary to them.
Right.
There are many people who will find the Gita to be too strict or too, that it advocates too much dispassion. It is not really conducive to enjoyment of life. This kind of thinking can arise. Right?
Yeah, when discuss with like in general discussion, right?
Right.
Okay, so you don't enjoy all, right? Like for example, to have physical world, right? If you don't enjoy it, then why you are here? Kind of like that general sense of understanding. Okay,
Yeah.
if you don't eat good food, meat or whatever, other food,
Right.
then if you don't enjoy sense, what is the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, when in a general discussion,
Yes.
so you're a vegetarian, you don't drink, you don't do anything, right? And then how are you going to enjoy the life? What do you enjoy?
Right.
Right? And I don't think I can. I mean, there's no need to answer.
You're right. It's difficult to answer that. On the other hand, how does one explain the enjoyment of seeing a sunset? So there are sense enjoyments that are of a different nature. All right. So very true. Indeed. That is why that restriction has been, or more than a restriction, the caution is given.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? So anyway, very delightful set of verses. We are coming towards the end, but 18th chapter is very nice summary of everything in the Gita. And we will conclude fairly quickly, I think. And the timing is not bad. It will probably be before the end of the calendar year. All right. So looking forward to the next meeting. Acha?
We haven't decided yet what will be the next.
Yes, we will discuss a little more and let's think about it. Yes,
Sure.
it's a good point. Please send me your thoughts if you have any. Share your thoughts with me. Yeah? Acha. So shall we say Shanti Mantram and then conclude? Okay. Om Tachamyora Vrinemahe Gatum Yajnaya Gatum Yajnapataye Daivihi Swastirastunaham Swastirmanushabhyah Urdhvam Jigatu Bheshajam Shanno Astu Dvipadehe Sham Chatushpade Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste everyone. Have a lovely evening. Good to see you.